Have you ever found yourself quietly pulling back from people, not out of anger or disinterest, but from a feeling so subtle, so deep, that even you can't quite explain it? Perhaps you used to enjoy the buzz of conversation, the comfort of familiar company, the warmth of shared laughter. But now you find more comfort in silence, more peace in solitude, and more truth in your own thoughts than in crowded rooms. If that thought stirs something within you, if it lands not just in your mind, but in that quiet space behind your ribs where your truest self resides, then know this: you're not broken, you're not becoming cold, and you are certainly not alone. In fact, what you may be experiencing is not the decline of your social life, but the rise of your inner wisdom, the part of you that has lived long enough, hurt deeply enough, and loved fiercely enough to finally know when to say no without guilt and yes without pressure. There comes a point in life, often quietly and without warning, when the constant need to engage begins to feel less like a joy and more like a performance. When the applause fades and all that remains is the honest question, do these connections still serve me? And if that question has begun to echo in your quiet moments, while folding laundry, watching the sun rise, or sipping tea in an empty room, then this video is for you. Today, we're not just listing reasons why older adults sometimes drift away from social life. We're exploring 6 profound emotional truths. Truths that don't shout but whisper, truths that don't accuse but reveal, truths that speak to the quiet corners of your heart where experience, tenderness, and self-protection reside. These aren't flimsy guesses or surface-level psychology. These are the kind of reasons that you feel before you ever name them. The kind of reasons that build slowly, like moss on stone, soft, quiet, and undeniably real. And some may surprise you. Others may feel like you've known them forever but never put them into words. But by the time we finish, my hope is that you'll not only understand yourself better, but that you'll feel seen, validated, and perhaps most importantly, reassured that creating space around yourself is not selfishness. It is self-preservation, and in many cases, it is self-respect. So if you've been pulling away, declining invites, or simply feeling more at peace in your own company than in a room full of chatter, know that there's wisdom behind that choice, and today, we'll walk through it together. Let's begin with the first reason. Reason 1, the burden of past betrayals. As we age, we don't just gather memories, we gather echoes, some whisper of love, laughter, and joy. But others, they sting. They come wrapped in moments we rarely talk about. Those soft betrayals that didn't break us all at once, but chipped away quietly over time. Not every scar is from a dramatic rupture. Sometimes it's the friend who slowly stopped calling, the person who disappeared after your spouse passed, the one who promised to always be there, but wasn't when it mattered most. And with each of these small heartbreaks, something inside us shifts. Take Chloe, for example. She's 81 now. Years ago, her home was the center of warmth. Weekend dinners, music in the background, chairs filled with old friends and stories. But over time, the seats emptied. Not all at once. One friend moved, another forgot to return a call. One deeply betrayed her trust. There was no single explosion, just a slow, silent unraveling. These days, Chloe prefers the company of her garden, her memories, and her quiet. Not because she's bitter, not because she stopped loving people, but because she finally realized not everyone deserves a front row seat to her heart. And that realization, that's not coldness, that's clarity. You see, the older you get, the more you understand that time is sacred. Your heart is sacred, and access to both should be earned, not assumed. After a lifetime of showing up for others, of listening, of giving, often without being asked, you begin to grow more protective of what's left to give. It's not that you stopped trusting everyone, it's that you started trusting yourself more. Psychologists call this relational fatigue, when maintaining certain relationships begins to feel more exhausting than nourishing. It's especially common in people who've been emotionally wounded, those who've opened up only to be dismissed, who've leaned in only to be pushed away. And there's no shame in that. It simply means you've lived long enough to see what people are capable of, both the beautiful and the painful. And now your soul has learned to pause before offering itself. You don't chase connection just for the sake of filling silence. You don't entertain relationships just to avoid being alone. Instead, you ask, how do I feel after this person leaves the room? And if the answer is drained, uneasy, or unseen, you begin to step back. That step back isn't bitterness. It's protection. It's wisdom shaped through time, disappointment, and grace. So if you found yourself less willing to reach out, if you feel that gentle pull toward solitude more often, know this: you're not closing off. You're simply building gentle boundaries. Not walls, but quiet fences with open gates, for only those who show they know how to care for what's inside. And that's not selfishness. That's survival. That's strength. Now let's move on to the second reason many older adults begin to turn away from constant connection and towards something far more precious: peace. Reason 2, the longing for peace over idle chatter. There comes a quiet shift with age, a moment you can't quite mark on a calendar, but you feel it settle in your bones. Where once you tolerated endless small talk, now it feels like noise. Where once silence felt awkward, now it feels like home. You no longer feel the need to fill every pause. You no longer find comfort in conversations that skim the surface. And above all, you no longer have the energy or the interest to perform. Take Henry, for example. He's 76, a retired salesman who could charm a room in seconds. For decades, talking was his gift, his currency, his way of connecting. But lately, he skips large family gatherings, declines group events that used to energize him. Not because he's lost his warmth, but because he's found something richer: peace. When asked why, Henry simply says, "I'm done talking just to fill the air." And maybe you know exactly what he means, because as you get older, your emotional energy becomes sacred. You begin to guard it, not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom. The need to impress fades. The desire to be understood, fully and quietly, takes its place. You don't want conversations that go in circles. You want words that go somewhere, somewhere deep, somewhere real. And when that can't be found, many older adults would rather spend an evening wrapped in a soft blanket, a good book nearby, and the warmth of a quiet room, than in the company of people who leave them feeling lonelier than when they were alone. This isn't isolation, it's intention. It's the realization that you've earned the right to be selective, to choose quality over quantity, to treasure the moments that feed your soul rather than deplete it. You've grown tired of weather reports and shallow updates. What you crave now is sincerity, eye contact, pauses that hold meaning. Stories told not for approval, but for connection. There's a quiet strength in that, a kind of elegance that doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. So if you've been stepping back from gatherings, from chatter, from constant interaction, it doesn't mean something's wrong. It may mean something's finally right. You're waking up to what brings you peace. You're learning that comfort isn't always found in a full room. It's often found in a full heart. And if you're still watching, still feeling the truth of these words, let me know by commenting number 2 below. It lets me know you're here, and it reminds you that you're not alone in this shift. If you haven't subscribed yet, take a moment to do that now. Your support allows us to keep creating content that honors your journey and the quiet strength that comes with it. Now let's continue, because the next reason we withdraw isn't just about conversation. It's about connection and what happens when the world stops truly seeing you. Reason 3, the sense that people don't get you anymore. There's a moment, quiet and invisible, when you begin to notice the world doesn't move at your pace anymore. The slang is unfamiliar. The values have shifted. Conversations feel faster, louder, thinner. And somewhere in all that noise, you start to feel like you've been left on mute, not rejected, not excluded, just quietly unseen. Take Ella. She's 79, a former school teacher, mother of 5, and volunteer for half her life. A woman who once held families together and classrooms in order. She still tries to connect, shares stories from her youth, memories that hold the weight of generations. But when she talks, her younger relatives smile politely and check their phones. It's not cruelty, it's disconnection. And that's the part that stings. It's not that you've changed in a bad way. It's that others stop trying to understand the depth of who you are. You know how deeply you feel, how much you've lived, how much you still carry. But when people don't ask, when they don't listen, when they talk over you or change the subject, you begin to wonder if speaking up is worth the energy. And so, slowly, you stop. You speak less. You share less. Not out of anger, but out of protection. Because being misunderstood too many times doesn't just hurt, it wears you down. This kind of loneliness isn't loud. It's not about being physically alone. It's about being emotionally invisible. You could be in a room full of people and still feel completely unknown. Psychologists call this emotional invalidation, when your thoughts and feelings are brushed aside, even unintentionally. And it happens far more often to older adults than we talk about. Not because others mean harm, but because they stop looking beyond the surface. But let me tell you this clearly, your stories still matter. Your wisdom still matters. Your voice still matters. And just because the world has grown louder doesn't mean your quiet truth has lost its power. Sometimes it's not about forcing others to see you, it's about finding the few who already do. Or even more deeply, about realizing that you see yourself clearly now. And that can be enough. So if you've been withdrawing, not because you're bitter, but because you're tired of not being truly heard, you are not alone in that. And you don't have to apologize for it. You've earned the right to choose presence over performance, to choose solitude over superficiality, and to speak only when your heart feels safe. Because your words aren't just conversation, they're part of a legacy. And only those who respect that legacy deserve to hear them. Now let's move forward to something even deeper. The quiet fear that with age, your presence might become a weight for those you love. Reason 4, the fear of being a burden. There's a certain kind of silence that grows louder with age. It's not the silence of a quiet home or an empty room. It's the silence of hesitation, of wanting to speak but choosing not to, of needing help but holding back. Not because you're too proud, but because you care too deeply. You start to second guess whether a phone call might interrupt a busy day, whether asking for a ride or a visit might stretch someone too thin. And slowly a thought begins to settle in your mind like a shadow at dusk. I don't want to be a burden. It's not that you've grown distant, it's that you've grown considerate, maybe too considerate. Take Herbert. He's 84, a widower who once spent every weekend at his daughter's home, sharing meals, telling stories, helping with the grandkids. But as his knees began to fail, he started turning down invitations. When asked why, he said simply, "They've got enough on their plate. I don't want them rearranging their lives for me." Even though his daughter never once made him feel like a burden, the fear had already planted its roots. And like so many older adults, he chose absence over the risk of feeling like an obligation. Because here's the paradox. The more we need others, the more we want to protect them from that need. The more we crave closeness, the more afraid we become that our presence might feel like pressure. You've spent decades being the strong one, the provider, the helper, the problem solver, and now that you may need support, the role feels foreign, unnatural, even uncomfortable. But let me gently offer you this truth. Your worth has never been measured by how little you ask for. Love doesn't shrink when it's needed, it expands. The people who care for you, truly care, don't see your needs as a nuisance. They see them as sacred opportunities to give back, to return even a fraction of what you poured into the world. Still, this fear, it lingers. It whispers, maybe I'll just stay home. Maybe I'll keep this to myself. Maybe it's better not to ask. And before you know it, you're more alone than you intended to be. Not because others turned away, but because you did, out of love and out of fear. If you recognize yourself in this, if you've sat quietly when you wanted to speak, stayed in when you longed to go, held back when your heart was full, know that you are not alone. So many older adults carry this same invisible weight, but it doesn't have to be yours to carry alone. Let this be a gentle reminder. Your presence is not a problem. Your needs are not a burden, and your vulnerability is not weakness. It's one of the last, rare forms of strength. If this resonates with you, please comment number 4 below. Not because you owe us anything, but because your voice deserves to be heard, even in the smallest ways. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I invite you to do so now. We're building a space where your experiences matter, where your heart is seen, not sidelined. Next, we'll talk about something quieter, but just as real: the slow fading of relationships that once felt unshakable, and how to honor that without feeling broken. Reason 5, the quiet fading of old relationships. Some relationships don't end with harsh words or slammed doors. They end in whispers, in pauses that stretch too long, in phone calls that never quite get returned. There's no fight, no betrayal, just life, pulling two people gently in different directions until one day you realize what used to be constant has become occasional and eventually distant. It's not dramatic, but it still hurts. Take Victoria, a 73-year-old woman who used to take weekly walks with her best friend from high school. They shared everything: grief, jokes, gossip, quiet companionship. But over the years, the walks turned into monthly calls, then once-a-year catch-ups, and now the friendship exists mostly in memory. No one got angry. No one did anything wrong. They just drifted. And if you've felt that, if you've looked at old photos or names in your phone and wondered, when did we last really talk? Then you know the ache I'm talking about. Because some friendships don't break. They fade. Like a familiar song playing from another room. Still there, but quieter now. Harder to hear. And while some of those faded connections bring relief, others leave a quiet sadness, a wondering, a missing. Not just of the person, but of who you were when you were with them. Because the truth is, many of our closest relationships were born out of shared seasons. Raising children, working side by side, being neighbors. And when those seasons pass, the glue that held us together sometimes softens. You didn't stop caring, you just started changing. And that's okay. There's no shame in letting go of bonds that no longer reflect where you are in life. In fact, it's a kind of progress, a soft evolution toward honesty with yourself. You begin to understand that not everyone can walk the full distance with you. Some were only meant to walk a few chapters. And that doesn't make the connection any less real. It just makes it complete. And when those old relationships start to feel strained, exhausting, or disconnected, you stop forcing it. Not because you've given up, but because you've grown up. You no longer chase what once was. You make peace with what is. Sometimes choosing space isn't a loss. It's an act of respect for them and for yourself. So if you've been quietly stepping back from old friendships, letting certain connections go, know that it's not coldness, it's clarity. It's a recognition that you've changed, and you're honoring that change by not clinging to what no longer fits. Because closeness without real connection can feel lonelier than solitude ever will. And if you've chosen peace over people who no longer feel like home, that isn't failure. That's grace. Let's move now to the final reason. A reason that may surprise you with its sweetness, because sometimes you're not pulling away out of pain. You're pulling away because you've discovered something rare and beautiful: the joy of your own company. Reason 6, the joy of being on your own. At some point in life, something shifts. You stop reaching for company just to fill the silence, and instead, you begin to fall in love with the quiet. Not because you're bitter, not because you've given up, but because you finally found something so rare, so healing, so whole: yourself. For years, maybe decades, you were constantly surrounded by people: family, coworkers, friends, noise, movement, responsibility. And then, slowly, or all at once, you found yourself with space, and for the first time in a long while, you could hear your own thoughts again. And they didn't scare you, they soothed you. Take James, he's 82 now. In his younger days, his house was always full, people dropping by, laughter spilling out of windows, chairs never empty. He loved it then. But now, his favorite moment of the day is sitting on his porch at dusk, a cup of tea in his hand, birdsong in the air, and no one talking. When asked if he ever feels lonely, he smiles and says, "I've got decades of memories. They keep me good company." Because what James has discovered is not absence, it's presence, not of others, but of himself. Solitude, when chosen, becomes something sacred, a sanctuary, a soft room where your soul gets to breathe without interruption. It's not a withdrawal, it's a return to your pace, to your rhythm, to your essence. And yes, others may not understand it. They may worry, they may assume something's wrong, but you know better. You know that not every silence needs to be filled, that peace isn't the absence of people, it's the presence of alignment. That joy can be found not in the noise of many, but in the truth of one, yourself. There's a quiet kind of power that comes with age, a freedom from needing to explain who you are or perform for anyone's approval. You don't have to prove anything anymore. You just have to be. So if you've chosen long walks alone over crowded gatherings, if your favorite company is a warm blanket, a soft breeze, and your own thoughts, if you've stopped chasing connection and started savoring stillness, know this: you are not missing out. You are coming home. And that home, it's been within you all along. If this spoke to you, if you felt the quiet beauty of your own presence, comment number 6 below and let me know you're here. Your reflections help us know we're walking this path together. And if you haven't already, I invite you to subscribe and turn on the bell. This space is yours too, a space that honors your pace, your wisdom, and your beautifully evolving life. Now let's bring all of this together, because every step back from others doesn't mean you're fading. It may mean you're finally stepping fully into who you were always meant to be. So now that we've walked through these 6 quiet shifts of the heart, let me ask you something gently. Which one spoke to you the loudest? Was it the weight of past betrayals you're still learning to carry? The growing hunger for real conversation and the sacred silence that follows? Or perhaps it was the simple truth that you no longer feel fully understood, and that hurts more than you let on. Maybe it was the fear of becoming a burden, or the slow fading of friendships you once thought would last forever. Or maybe, just maybe, it was that unexpected joy in realizing that your own company, your own rhythm, your own quiet life is more than enough. Whichever reason stirred something in you, I hope this video helped you realize one essential truth. You're not falling apart. You're growing inward. You're not becoming distant. You're becoming clear. You're not lonely. You're learning to walk with yourself. And in that quiet walk, you've earned the right to protect your peace, to say no without guilt, and to choose depth over noise. The world doesn't often celebrate these changes, but here we do, because every boundary you set, every pause you take, every person you lovingly release is a sign of growth, not grief. So if you found yourself stepping away, choosing solitude, or feeling like your life is quieter than it used to be, I invite you to stop seeing that as loss. Start seeing it as alignment. You're moving toward the life that fits the person you've become, not the person you used to be. And that is something sacred. Even in your silence, you are heard. Even in your solitude, you are seen. Even in your stillness, you are surrounded by those of us who understand. If this video gave you clarity, comfort, or simply reminded you of who you are, please leave a comment below. Tell us which insight meant the most. Your story could be the very thing another person needs to read today. And if you haven't yet, we'd love for you to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you never miss another message meant just for you. Thank you for spending this time with us. You are never walking this path alone. We'll see you in the next video with open hearts, quiet strength, and the courage to keep choosing what truly matters. Until then, take gentle care of your beautiful self.